Hi everyone. Apologies that I can't be in class today, but I hope you all enjoyed this YouTube presentation. Please feel free to email me with questions and comments after the fact. I'd love to hear everyone's feedback since I won't be able to attend class today. As I mentioned a few classes ago, my favorite museum is the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. And while I know it may be cliche, this is perhaps one of my absolute favorite places in the world. I never visit New York City without dedicating at least half of a day to going. I've spent most of my time there in the Egyptian wing, just to be honest, because that is my greatest passion. But I'm going to talk about the entire place, so don't fret. And also, for clarification, I will solely be discussing the Metropolitan Museum of Art located on Fifth Avenue in New York City. We won't be looking at the Met cloisters for the purposes of just for the purposes of time today. So here I have quoted the mission statement of the Met that reads, "The mission of the Metropolitan Museum of Art is to collect, preserve, study, exhibit, and stimulate appreciation for and advance knowledge of works of art that collectively represent the broadest spectrum of human achievement at the highest level of quality, all in the service of the public and in accordance with the highest professional standards." And this was written as of September 12th of 2000. So let's move away just from the PowerPoint for a second and explore the mission statement in its entirety. And so here I've just pulled up the mission statement. You can find it right online. It's important when it comes to the mission statement to be clear, be concise, and likewise be detailed. And we see here that the Met has covered all bases, including the mission statement that I have quoted here. If you guys can follow my little cursor, hopefully you guys can see it, but it's right here, almost in the center of the page. And we also see that they've included details on their standards, on staff, on facilities, on finances. So it's, like I said, it's very important to include all of these things, and every museum has their own unique mission statement, which upon initial reading should provide the reader with a comprehensive understanding of what this museum is about. So we'll just pop back here to the presentation, and we'll look a little bit at the history of the Met. We'll dive into much more detail on exhibitions and their own history in a few minutes, but I just want to go over some very general information about the history of the Met. So the Met was first just a small idea formulated by a group of Americans living in Paris, France, who had decided to bring an institution of art and antiquities to their fellow Americans. And originally founded in 1870, the museum officially opened to the public on Fifth Avenue, New York City in 1880. And the image I have attached here is of the Met in 1914, and I have manually circled the actual original structure. Everything to the front of the circle in the image was added at a later date. The first item ever accessioned by the Met was exposed to the public was a Roman sarcophagus. And then throughout the 19th and 20th century, the museum underwent extreme renovations and additions to exhibits. And again, we'll cover all of this soon. The Met is now a highly renowned and known worldwide institution, and it's known as a repository of art and classic antiquities representing over 5,000 years of human history. And so we'll move on to curatorial departments and or the permanent exhibitions. There are so many exhibitions at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and there are over 30 different ones that occur each year. So I decided to instead focus on those curatorial departments and those departments that are always going to be there. So we certainly don't have time to go through each and every one of these here that I have listed on the right-hand side of the screen. But I'm going to show you guys some images of each one in just a few moments, and we'll just click through them pretty quick. The Met, as you guys can see, is an incredibly vast institution with thousands upon thousands of accession items, many of which are incorporated in over 30 special exhibitions put on each year, in addition to these permanent exhibitions in different wings. So we're going to check out some public highlights quickly of each curatorial department, and we'll just click through some of the images that I pulled from the Met's website. Feel free after the fact to use the links at the end of the presentation to look deeper into each collection. It's really quite interesting, especially if you've never been, or if you're looking for a refresher. They really do have a very expansive web repository of these items. And so we're just going to look through, I'm just going to give each one, just a few seconds for you guys to take in the image. I think everyone probably knows this of George Washington, probably one of the most famous paintings of George Washington there is. And then we'll just keep looking on. I think this sword over here is so cool. I've actually never seen this one at the Met. I have actually seen this exhibition, and this photo doesn't do this kind of background any justice. It's really, really awesome. And this one I included some personal images. This is my absolute favorite exhibition. And I immediately go right to the right of the building when I arrive, just because I have to spend so much time here. And it's really interesting. You can actually handle so many items in this exhibit as well. Like you can see, I have my hands here on the Sphinx, and I look like I'm doing the Macarena or something underneath this tomb entrance. So I had to throw those in as personal interest. This is one of my favorite photographs in the collection, so I decided to put this one here, even though there are hundreds and hundreds. So I know that was quick and that was brief, but like I said, please feel free. I did email this presentation to all of you guys. Please feel free to click all the links that are all right here. And just look through all of these and familiarize yourself. It's really worth, sitting at your computer for an hour or so and checking out everything that the museum has to offer. And so just to talk a little bit about the current events happening at the Met. And as we've talked about, the Met is a leading institution in art and classical antiquities, but it's important to think beyond those exhibitions when it comes to fulfilling the mission statement of the museum. Particularly during these tumultuous times as the world tackles COVID-19, the Met has been working to put on digital activities that stimulate the public, such as these two events that I have attached here, and these are actually the most current events that are occurring. Musical performances like this one here, and lectures on the portraiture of several different paintings held at the museum are just two examples in which the museum is attempting to continue to fulfill their mission statement during such times, especially when actual entry into the museum is limited. It's definitely difficult for people to get in there and see everything that they'd love to see and experience the museum in the way that they want it to be experienced. And I recommend to you guys checking out the website and RSVPing to these events. Digital events seem to be the choice of the times, as we're all familiar with taking all of our digital courses. And I think that's all the more reason to become involved and explore these collections in new ways. So I wanted to also include just a slide on criticisms and considerations of the museum. We are taking a management class, and it's important to be critical of that management and be critical of the institution as a whole. And while the Met has a famous and engaging reputation, it is not invulnerable to such criticisms. Recently, the museum is criticized as being a competitive institution alongside the MoMA, the Natural Museum of History, and countless others. The competitive atmosphere involves attracting tourism as well as acquiring items and collections. And it's certainly an important consideration that a museum dedicated to serving the public may also serve an underlying competitive agenda. In addition to the competitive market, the Met has been criticized for the past 3 years for consistent layoffs of employees, unjustified budget cuts, decrease in pay for employees, and the installation of a mandatory entrance fee to all public viewers instead of a voluntary donation that it used to have. And these are all important considerations to leave the presentation with, I believe. And what do these criticisms, do for the museum and for the public, and especially for the future of institutions such as the Met? So not to leave you on a heavy note, but I do think that these are the kinds of things that, especially in this kind of class and in critical museum studies in general, that we need to think about, even if the institution is near and dear to your heart like the Met is to mine. And so down here, I've just got all these references that, again, you guys can absolutely just click through and look at. These are all the links to the different departments and those images that I had attached earlier. And then these are just some of my attached image references. Like I said, you can just refer to the superscript links in the titles. And then if you guys are interested in reviewing the article that I talked about here in criticisms and considerations, that is also attached down here with figure 3 of the museum image that I have right here. So like I said, guys, please just shoot me some emails or anything like that if you want to talk any more about it, and I will see you guys all next week.